Recording in progress.
The one that was just in with us. Vanessa.
Vanessa.
I called her Stephanie.
Yeah. You mean HR? Yeah,
HR.
human resources, yeah. Okay, you guys ready? All right. Good evening. I'll call the Federal Way City Council meeting to order for January 21st, 2025. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everybody. Councilmember Tran is not feeling well, and he's excused for tonight's meeting. All right, we'll start with the emerging issues and the mayor's emerging issues and report. All right. Hey, I recognize that guy. We got the my State of the City address coming up on February 13th. That's a Thursday. It's the day before Valentine's Day, so our theme is I Heart Federal Way. I hope you can make it. A lot of stuff to talk about all the great things we're doing in Federal Way that we're really working on, and you know, it's an opportunity to talk about some of the things we accomplished in the past year and what our plans are this coming year and beyond. And so it's a free event at the Performing Arts and Event Center. Doors will open, I'd say probably about 5:30, maybe a little bit earlier. We're going to have pretty close to like 65 tables set up in the foyer in the lobby area, and that's going to be city departments, local governments, nonprofits, all kinds of groups. It's a great opportunity to really meet members of their community. So we're working on a really good show for you, lots of pictures, and really hope you can make it, and we'll have a good time talking about the future of our city and where we're going. So a lot to love in Federal Way, and it's going to be a great event. So next. Okay. Oh, and also just to let you know, I'm not going to go on and on. I'll go on. We'll start the event probably about 6. And, you're talking about maybe a 25-minute, 30-minute speech at most. But again, we'll have opportunities for hearing people, the kids from our local schools perform and on all the local governments. Okay, next, recent community events. We had the Federal Way Kiwanis Lunch, January 8th at Puerto Vallarta. It was great. That's on the far left. It's great to see the Kiwanians. I think it's been almost... I think it's been almost 30 years since I joined back. I was telling the group when I got there that Dave Larson and I actually joined. We had a guy, one of the real characters in Federal Way's history, this guy named Bill, who recruited both Dave Larson and I, and we just happened to be on the same. He's our judge, obviously, and we didn't know each other at the time, and we both joined at the same lunch. This is when they used to be over at the Golden Spoon, the location over there at the buffet, and it's been quite some time. So anyway, it was great to see many of my good friends at Kiwanis. They asked a lot of great questions. We talked about some of the things that are coming up, and again, the Kiwanis puts on that salmon feed every year. The last Friday in July, it's always a great opportunity. So I'm reserving my spot for the salmon feed already. Salmon bake, yes, exactly. That's right.
Old Country Buffet was what you're looking for.
Exactly. You guys, I'm like that TV. Have you guys seen that TV commercial for somebody saying, go Tide for the Alabama instead of Roll Tide? Anyway, all right. Property Tax Town Hall was last week at KOM TV, sponsored by King County Councilman Pete von Reichbauer. And we actually had Jeff Darrow, the Director of Residential Division of Department of Assessments. It was a good meeting. I appreciate that. Thanks, Pete, for getting that organized. And then this past Saturday, we had, you see the picture there, we had the Dr. Martin Luther King's Jr. celebration, January 18th at the PAC. It was absolutely fantastic. I really think it was well attended. There was a community celebration afterwards with the booths out in the lobby. Evan Cook spoke as the keynote speaker, and yours truly placed the lamp, the light on top of the lamp there. The kids' performances were just adorable. There were some really just adorable kids, and it was really multicultural. It was really great to see the different cultures and the celebration, and it was a lot of fun, and very meaningful and impactful. And we're also going to be playing that. We had our videography there, and it's going to be on Channel 21 here soon. Okay, Mayor's Emerging Issues and Report, upcoming community events. We've got Fort Culture and the PAC present live at the PAC a free nonprofit workshop. That's Thursday, January 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Federal Way Performing Arts and Event Center. And then I want to talk a little bit about the cold weather shelter update. I want to just say, you see the sign there, Fusion, the Family Center, that they have right there just south of where the post office is. We got an update. Okay, let me just say this. Whenever we've got a protocol when the weather gets very cold, dangerously cold, and as we all know, this past week has been very, very cold, especially the past few days. And a big thanks to Fusion. I was on the phone with David Hoffman today, and just saying thank you, or the executive director at Fusion. That organization has literally saved lives. And I did want to share what Layla, our human services coordinator, has provided to us. One second. And what Layla provided, where is that number? Here it is. What's that? Okay. So on January 16th, we had 6 individuals and this is again at that center there that Fusion houses, and it's in the lobby in that area. We had 6 individuals on the 16th, 4 males, 2 females, and no issues whatsoever. On the 17th, we had 10 individuals, 6 males, 4 females. On January 18th, it climbed to 14 individuals, 10 males, 3 females, and we had a very young minor that we were, making sure that we took special care of. On the 19th, we had 19 individuals, 10 males, 8 females. On the 20th, yesterday, we had 21 individuals, 12 males, 8 females, and in total, Layla writes, 70 persons were sheltered throughout this time at Fusion, in which they received a warm meal and cot to rest. And the young minor has since been connected to CPS and additional support services. Fusion will be open again this evening, along with other shelters in our South King County region, as the King County Regional Homeless Authority has activated Tier 3 and daytime warming centers at local malls and libraries. John, let's Ben, let's work on a press release tomorrow to make sure that we open up. But I was thinking about this today. I don't think we've gotten formal notice about the warming center at the community center.
Yeah, no problem, we can do that.
All right, let's get that out. And we just happen to have the mirror right here, so a press release will be forthcoming, Keelan. And we just need to make sure we get people out of this dangerous cold weather. And I would just want to say, I called David today just to say a very special thank you. We're so fortunate to have Fusion in our community, and we just got some very caring individuals that it really is nice to be and important to get people out of the cold. We are working on the shelter issue. We've been in contact. In fact, actually, we do have Layla. We've got has reported, and her supervisor Chris Greer has reported that we're in talks with the individuals who'll be running the Health Through Housing and those communications with King County and that organization that will be running Health Through Housing. Those communications are ongoing. Okay, then next. On Saturday, February 22nd, we'll have the annual City Council retreat. Doors open at 7:30 a.m. We'll have a breakfast, and then we'll probably get started right around 8 a.m. And we'll go from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So it'd be great to have you there, and it's a great opportunity for us. This is, again, down at Dumas Bay, an opportunity for us to get together and for the council to have productive conversations about different initiatives. And many of the things that several of the things that we're talking about during the budget season, and ideas and suggestions and capital projects, these are the kinds of opportunities where we could stand back and really visualize and communicate with each other about what the priorities are or what the opportunities are, and prioritize those opportunities. Okay, that concludes my report. And now we are on to the most important part of the meeting, public comment. I have one pink sheet at this point, and it's Susan Strong. Susan?
Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, and council members. I'm Susan Strong, and I've lived in Federal Way since 1975. I have been aware of the Day Center for the past several years while I've worked with the Stand Up Federal Way community group, helping to clean up our great city. During our work, we became aware of areas needing to be cleaned up. We also learned of groups trying to help homeless people and observed what they were doing to help. This is how I became aware of the Day Center and watched from the outside what went on there. There was a recent decision to give the Day Center more time to keep their parking lot, sidewalk, and the area adjacent to them free from homeless people and their clutter. I have been keeping my eye on the area and have been disappointed. When I went by there today, I didn't even see anyone I would describe as security. I would assume security should be visible. Valley Cities, which is directly across from the Day Center, has recently finished the installation of a high wire fence completely around itself. This includes the parking lot. This is a very strong reaction to what the Day Center has done to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the council? Okay, thank you very much. Item 5, these are council committee and regional committee reports. Parks, Recreation, Human Services, and Public Safety. Councilmember Walsh.
All right, we met last Tuesday evening, and had an excellent meeting. Items, the consent agenda, items C through H were presented there and moved on to the consent agenda. And item 7, which is before council business tonight, was discussed. We had a great presentation on it. So very good meeting. Our next meeting will be February, hold on, I should have it right here. Just a moment. Excuse me not being totally prepared here. Our next meeting will be February 11th at 5 o'clock right here in the chamber.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Land Use Transportation Committee, LUTC, Councilmember Dovey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Our next meeting is going to be February 3rd, which is a Monday. And on tonight's agenda, you'll see many of the things we discussed on the docket to pass. And then under council business, we'll be talking about a proposed, what do you call it, development agreement with the LDS Temple, which came through our committee. And that's what I have to report.
All right, thank you. Okay, Finance, Economic Development, Regional Affairs Committee, Councilmember Tran is gone. Do we have a member of the committee?
We haven't met yet for January. We'll be meeting next week on January 28th, which will be Tuesday.
All right, thank you very much. Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, Councilmember Sapadawson.
Nothing to report on.
All right, thank you. Regional Committees report, Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. So the legislative session has started again, and AWC is doing their weekly federal Friday city action days. So they're every Friday. They're on Zoom. They're at 12:30 to 1, and you have to register each week by, I believe it's the day before. And excuse me, AWC will talk about the bills and things that have happened that are important to cities, and there is also a chance for council members to ask questions. And if you haven't attended one of those, they're really interesting. People from all over the state attend, and you get an idea of what people in other cities are concerned about and what's going on. They're also offering an Elected Essentials Forum on February 28th, which is a really important day. It's a birthday of our city. And
you, right?
and me too, but
Happy birthday.
mostly the city. Anyway, if you're interested in going, you know, it's for new council members and new mayors, but also it goes over things that if you've been on council for a while, it's a good refresher. So if you're interested, you need to sign up for that. Sound Cities Association just elected our new president for the year, and it's Councilmember Tracy Buxton from Des Moines, so congratulations to her. And today I was at Skateboard, which is South County Transportation Board, and we were talking with Metro about their South Link Connections Mobility Project. I had Amy email you guys the information on that, but the mobility project talks about what Metro is doing to get people from around Federal Way in Kent and Auburn to light rail, as light rail is coming in. It's full of information. I'd encourage you to read it. I understand Metro is coming to council on the 4th. And so this is a way you can be prepared for their what they're going to be talking about or potentially talking about, and ask some questions.
Great, awesome. Council President report.
I'd like to also say thank you to our Diversity Commission for putting on the MLK Day event at the PAC. It was wonderfully done. We have, we're going to be going, besides the retreat, the next thing coming up beyond that for the council is Washington, D.C. and our legislative agenda. So we're going to need to start talking a little bit about what our legislative agenda is going to be with the new administration and what the, I'm not sure if, are you going to have something on one of the agendas? Thank you.
It'll be at FEDRAC, Council President,
Okay, good.
and we'll have our lobbyists dial in and be present.
Oh, good. Is that Luke?
Luke will be on Zoom because he's in DC, and then Rick will be here in person.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep. And you'll have a whole briefing in your packet before the meeting, so you can read up on everything.
Yeah, because there will be, thank you, there will be probably a new direction that they'll be going, and we're going to need to know what it is, where they're going, so we know where we can fit in and what we can ask for. So thank you, absolutely. Thank you. And then just one last thing, you know, we're expecting 29 degrees at night all week, and so you just need to remember to wrap your pipes. You know, I used to work for the Water District for 33 years, and it was always a big thing about wrapping your pipes. And when I finally found out that my pipes broke, burst, it's not pleasant, especially when you have my furnace stopped working in one of the really cold weathers. So you need to wrap all of your pipes, including your furnace ducts that are in the garage, because it's traumatic when, if you don't have anything to put over them, just simply use any piece of cloth that you have and just wrap it around the outside faucets. And if you need to, open up the cabinet door where your sinks are and let your water drip a little. A little bit of a drip is going to be a lot cheaper than fixing a burst pipe. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, the Diversity Commission did do a good job. Like I said, I think that was the best event they'd had. And very, very special thank you to all the Diversity Commission members. And Ron did a really good job as well. It's really, yeah, Ron Walker, a long time. He's been doing MLK events here going back, 20, 25 years. So, okay. Let's see here. Oh, and thank you to Abby with the Parks Department. She did a great job. Boy, Abby and Stacia did a fantastic job. Place looked great. It was all good. Okay, and Bill kept me from the cookies. Thank you, Bill. All right, okay. All right, consent agenda. These items have gone through committee and can be passed all at once, or after I read them all, I ask you if you want an item pulled for separate consideration. Item A, the minutes, January 7th, 2025, regular and special meeting minutes. Item B, amendment to Extenet franchise. C, Federal Way Community Center Pool Boiler Replacement Project Acceptance. D, Federal Way Community Center Pool Slide Pump Replacement Project. E, King County Jail Services Interlocal Agreement. F, 25 to 26, Human Services Commission Work Plan. G, 2025 Diversity Commission Work Plan. And H, Federal Way Community Center Locker Room Renovations Bid Award. Counselor, are there any items you'd want pulled for separate consideration? All right, Council President Kochmar.
Thank you, Mayor. I move approval of the consent agenda items A through H.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Matters passed unanimously. Item 7, council business. Item A, initiation of a development agreement for the proposed LDS Latter-day Saints Temple. A presentation by Keith Niven, Community Development Director.
And council members, if there are any recusals or similar items, now would be the time to do so.
I'll be recusing myself from this vote.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President Kochmar, and council members. Keith Niven, Community Development Director. The policy question in front of the City Council is, should the City Council initiate negotiation of a development agreement with the Church of the Latter-day Saints for a temple in Federal Way? The church currently owns 3 properties south of Todd Beamer High School. Approximately 12 acres of land, and what they've asked for in a letter request is to ultimately build a temple of about 43,000 square feet on this property. And to give you a sense of size, 43,000 square feet is about half the size of this building. This building's about 83,000 square feet. So this agenda item went through the Land Use and Transportation Committee, and the recommendation from the committee as well as from the mayor is option 1, which is to go ahead and begin authorization of negotiation of a development agreement for the proposed LDS temple. And with that, I'm here for any questions.
Council? Councilor McDaniel?
Yeah, the only question I really have is, we had quite a few questions during that little session. Will most of those questions be answered once the development starts, the agreement starts and they start, is that part of the agreement?
Yeah, all the project details, for example, building height and traffic and what kind of mitigations would be necessary to make all that work, is all part of the development agreement negotiation, and we'll get into that with them, assuming you guys say yes to starting the negotiation of a development agreement.
And then what would be the estimated time frame before some of that stuff comes back for us to listen to and discuss?
All of them run on their own time, which is always interesting. My general rule of thumb is development agreements take a year. Okay. For them, they seem to be very eager. So this could be let's just say 8 months. So sometime kind of late summer, early fall, we might have this in front of the council for discussion and decision.
All right, thank you.
All right, Councilor Honda?
I know we talked about the fact that the building might be taller, or that the steeple.
The spire.
Might be taller than what we currently allow, and that the neighbors would have some input into that. But considering that the high school is right there and that road is very narrow, if there needs to be road improvements, who would pay for those?
If they are road improvements necessitated by the temple and the traffic generation of the temple, that would be their requirement to do those street improvements as part of the permitting ultimately of the facility.
So will we require a traffic study?
There will be absolutely, there'll be a traffic study that will come in as part of the negotiation of the development agreement, because we will need to know what kind of improvements are needed.
And this building will draw people from Pierce County and South King County, or farther?
I'm not sure and I don't know, Kent, if you had that conversation with their attorneys. I don't know what the catchment area is. I know there's a temple in Bellevue, but I'm not sure where the next closest temple is. So it does have much bigger than the city of Federal Way in terms of a catchment area. I'm just not sure how far.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember Sepa Dawson?
Yeah, just curious, how large is the temple in Bellevue?
You know, I could have done that and I didn't. I apologize. I will track that number down and send it to you. That picture from the first slide, that was the Bellevue Temple.
Okay.
I don't know how big that building is, but I will definitely track that down and send it to you.
It'll be a good reference.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
110,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Yes.
43.
All right. Councilmember Dovey, do you have a motion?
Oh, yes, I do. I move to authorize a negotiation of a development agreement for the proposed LDS temple.
Second?
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All
One
right.
re-
And we've got recusal from Councilmember Walsh. Okay. All right. It's approved unanimously.
Thank you very much.
One absent and one recusal. Thank you very much. All right. Now moving on to item B. Sound Transit Surplus Transit-Oriented Development, TOD Properties. Keith?
Yes. Hang on for 1 second. Okay. Good evening again, Mayor, Council President Kochmar, council members, Keith Nevin, Community Development Director. So this evening, we're going to talk about the Sound Transit surplus transit-oriented development parcels. So the policy question in front of the City Council is, should the city wait for Sound Transit to release a request for proposals or begin a discussion with Sound Transit staff on potential property acquisition by the city? I think that's the question in front of us. So fact-checking from the 1-7 study session, there were a couple things that were said during that presentation about the Sound Transit surplus properties that weren't exactly correct, and I think there was a desire to set the record straight. So the first item, the RFP for the request for proposals for the TOD properties will be released in the next few weeks. That's not true. Initially, that was the timeline they were working on, but now that is delayed at least another 2 to 3 months. So it will be more like mid-year, late first quarter, early second quarter, in terms of when the RFP will be issued. And the RFP is only for 2 parcels, not all 4. So the northwest one and the west central one, and we'll get to a map in a second, are the ones that are going to be the subject of the RFP. The other 2 parcels, for a number of reasons, which we'll talk about later, they've chosen to do as kind of a phased request for proposals and release. The second thing that was said is that the city can purchase a TOD property from Sound Transit if it wants to. The answer to that's maybe. So Kent and I had a conversation with Sound Transit staff after the 1-7 study session, and Sound Transit has not directly negotiated the sale or the transfer of a parcel to a municipality. They've done that with some private parties when they're just little remnant parcels, like the adjacent property owner wants to buy a little sliver of land, and they've done that because they realize that there's really nobody else that would want it. But in terms of these properties in our downtown area that could be used for a number of different things, they have not worked outside of an RFP process up to this point. But it doesn't mean they can't. So the answer to number 2 is maybe. Number 3, what we heard was the city of Linwood purchased a TOD property for $167,000. That is also not true. What happened is that in Linwood, Sound Transit sold a piece of property for about $167,000 to Housing Hope. And so it's a nonprofit affordable housing builder, and it comes out to roughly $1,000 a door. I asked them about Bellevue, what happened in Bellevue with the TOD transfer. There, they sold a piece of property to Mercy Housing. There was not anything to Bellevue. So up until this point, Sound Transit has not sold a property directly to a municipality. So just wanted to make that clear. So a lot of questions about what those properties are worth. So here's what they look like. I probably should have started with a map, so my apologies for the sequence. So there's 4 parcels. There's a big one here on the northeast corner, and then there's 3 parcels along the west edge going north to south. This parcel, the big one, that one has some contamination from a past dry cleaner. This one on the southwest corner has some contamination due to a previous gas station. And so that is the reason why the request for proposals only include these 2 properties, because those are the 2 clean ones. The other ones, it's not that they can't be cleaned up, it's just that that's a little bit more complicated, and I think Sound Transit wants to work through some of those details before they potentially list those to the market. So questions are like, how much are these worth? So right now, generally, and again, ultimately the price will be set by an appraisal. They work the same as the city does. And if you remember, we got an appraisal done for TC3 before we negotiated the price of that with Trent. So there will be an appraisal done for the 4 properties. I'm using a general $1.7 million an acre number. Which I used to use 1.5, but I think inflation kind of caught up with me, and I think we're really more at 1.7 now. So based on the size of each of those parcels, that would mean that the listing price, what market is worth, is what's showing up in this far right column. And again, these are not exact numbers. These are just to give you guys an idea for, like, okay, if we wanted to buy one of these, how much would it cost? Now, cleaning up, the dry cleaning, cleaning up the gas station, that will affect the market value because there's money that needs to be spent before those properties can be used for development. So that, again, will affect ultimately that price. And contamination just went through. So here are the options that I think we're considering this evening. One is to request staff to open discussions with Sound Transit regarding the potential for the city to acquire any of the TOD properties. So let's just start talking to them about a property acquisition. Number 2, do not engage with Sound Transit until the requests for proposals for development are released, and then return to council at that time for another briefing and discussion. So we can wait for the 2 to 3 months, let the RFP hit the street, and then come back and have another conversation. And then the third option is, you know what, do not engage with Sound Transit on the potential city purchase of any of the Sound Transit TOD properties. In other words, do nothing. So the mayor's recommendation is option 1. Go ahead and just start a conversation with Sound Transit and see where it goes, and we can come back here and talk about it when we want to. Any questions?
Councilor Dovey?
Yeah, I have one question. You know, the property in Linwood, what they said, 167,000.
Yep.
Multiple papers. So you said that's not true, and I believe you it's not true, but what was the deal structured like? I mean, that's gotta be public record, so.
Right.
Was it's affordable housing,
Yep.
the land's gotta be worth more than $1 million.
Yep.
Based on what you talked about. So how did they structure that deal? What did it look like?
So going through these RFP processes, and I have done this before in the city of Issaquah, is for affordable housing, is you basically say, I've got a piece of property, I want to get affordable housing on it, it appraised at this, make me a proposal. And so everybody then, the people that are interested, and there'd be multiple potential nonprofits that would have submitted proposals, because what happens then as a nonprofit, and the way I've seen it work, is you ultimately land that RFP with Sound Transit, and you're given a certain amount of time to generate the revenue to actually buy it and then to build it, right? And so my guess is Housing Hope put in a proposal that said if the land value is $1,000 a door, we can generate the rest of the revenue to actually build a project for the community on that piece of property. Now, that may have been different than someone else who may have said, well, I can do it for $2,000 a door, but the affordability might not have been as low as Housing Hope. And then the Sound Transit Board gets to decide how much of a discount are they going to give to the property based on the public benefit of the residential that's provided.
So my follow-up question is, you said no city's ever bought the land, but, and I'm not saying we are, but if this city decided we wanted to build affordable housing and be the prime sponsor, then we would have the same, potentially the same benefit that City of Hope had, because if we're gonna say we want to build whatever AMI is to get to that point and be the lead instead of a nonprofit, would that possibly change the mix with Sound Transit? I mean, you said no cities bought it, but it was before housing, but if that's our priority, have you ever seen anything like that happen?
So I think that if I was Sound Transit and I was managing these 4 parcels, and what we've heard from them is these are the most flat developable properties that they have in their system,
Right.
at least so far. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, they're going to want a mix of housing on the properties.
And that's a given.
Yeah,
I mean,
and so it may very well be to the city's advantage to be on the leading edge of that, to say, okay, look, we'll plant our flag here and we'll work a deal to get housing at this AMI. And then they can then think about providing contracts with other providers at a different level AMI, so that you end up with a variation of affordability within those 3 or 4 parcels.
or the city, if it had wanted to be way out in front of everybody, could, not saying we do, but we could do that for all 4 of them, as long as you meet the terms of the building and, you know, the different AMIs. I mean, it's no different other than timing, right?
Absolutely. I think if the city needs to decide, you know, whether it wants to be in the front seat or the back seat on this conversation, obviously, if we're the property owner, we're in the front seat. If Sound Transit is, we're still in the car, we're in the back seat, but we get to have a conversation with them about how that goes.
And one last question, and then but if it was conceivable and you lived up to the 80-80-80 rule, and, you know, cities have more money or bonding ability than private developers usually, I'm not saying we want to do this, but we could control the whole asset if we agreed to do 80-80-80 and be in the front seat instead of just being there at the back seat. Is that correct? Potentially.
Potentially.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Walsh?
Yeah, just as you're talking about it, all of a sudden, idea came to my mind. It may be totally outlandish, but with that larger parcel that has the contamination from the dry cleaners, from looking at it, I would imagine that contamination is on the northern part of that parcel.
So the problem is where the contaminants go into the ground is not so important as where they go once they go underneath the surface. So what happens with PERC, and PERC is, there's a really long, complicated chemical name, is the dry cleaning chemicals. They're heavier than petroleum, so that's why gas stations are cheaper to clean up. Dry cleaners, it actually sinks down, and then it migrates with groundwater. So even though you might be right, it might be up here, depending on which way the subsurface, like geology and hydrology is, it may be maybe under here, maybe under here. I mean, so that's part of the problem is figuring out exactly how far it's gone and then what it's going to do to take to clean it up.
Okay. Basically, what I was thinking, and it sounds like that, given that it wouldn't be, a feasible idea anyway, is that I was thinking if it was on the northern part, I mean, we secure it and the northern part, instead of doing a housing or buildings, make it a park and cap it so that there's not contamination coming up for getting into kids and stuff like that. But make it a park, and would that make it easier to mitigate? But it sounds like that probably would not be the case.
Probably not. There's probably no clear divisible line on that property to say, we could just cordon this off, make it clean, and this is dirty, and cap it, because where the housing is, they're gonna have investment problems if it's on a property that might have contamination. They'll need to do in phase 1 or a phase 2 on it before they probably build.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Council President Kochmar?
Well, with regard to the contaminants, I wouldn't imagine they go straight down. They probably diffuse in the ground. And I know you can dig to China before you find where they are, because that's what they did at our fire station right down the street. But it would appear to me that the other 3 properties couldn't be developed until you solved the contaminant problem on the northeast property or the north property.
So right now, they believe that the contamination on the dry cleaner parcel and the contamination on the old gas station parcel wouldn't affect these 2.
Don't know how that went, but it's none of my business. But well, my real, when they did Korean Women's Association on the other side of the garage, of course, that they sold that property to them for $1 a year for 40 years, basically. They leased it to KWA for $1 a year.
Right.
Well, I don't know why we couldn't, because what I think some of us would like is senior housing. That would be for seniors, low-income seniors, because we have some low-income senior women who live on $9.50 a month or less. You can't find anything at that price. And it would appear to me that we should be able to have more housing for low-income seniors on one of these pieces of property that we would be able to negotiate with Sound Transit, not that we would buy it or buy it, so that we could have that as one of the property developments.
So maybe. I mean, that's a maybe. I mean, so ultimately, Sound Transit, the way they'll write their RFP is, if the city, let's assume the city doesn't want to acquire those 2 properties that are being released for this initial RFP. We're going to have the ability to have a conversation with them about if there are any special type of housing that we feel is important to be in the downtown area. So if ultimately the council as a whole feel like senior housing is underrepresented in our downtown, then we could ask for that to be a priority. And then the way they would write their RFP is that Sound Transit would give preference to someone who would be willing to provide affordable senior housing. So you can write it in a way that says, if that's what we all think we want, that they get a preference in selection.
Okay, so, but we do have some low-income housing in our downtown, but it is not for the really low folks. That's really the issue. We have no place for the people who are really ultra low. In other words, shag housing, you can't even get into shag next to McDonald's. Let's say you have $750 or $950 a month because you've never worked for whatever reason, or if you've been disabled or whatever. There is nothing. We have nothing for people like that, male or female. So would appear to me that would be something we would want to target. So anyway, thanks for listening.
All right, Councilmember Honda?
Paul was on first.
Okay. I was just going right in order. Councilmember McDaniel?
Could you go to the one that actually has the numbers so I can see what the numbers are again? All right, so when I had my meeting with Sound Transit, they had mentioned they were not sure if P1 and P2 had been contaminated because of the water levels at that point. So they're now saying that they've completed their testing and P1 and P2 are clean. The contamination did not go into that water source.
That's what I understand.
Okay, and then if I believe correctly, P3, even if you buy it and you do fix it up, the mitigation for the cleanup, will be reimbursed by BP, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
All right, so P4 was caused by, you said dry cleaning?
Yes, sir.
So there's no chance dry cleaners kicking anything in for that?
No.
Okay. And then do we have an idea of what the cost might be for cleanup on these things, or is that an
Yes.
unknown? We do?
Yes. So gas stations generally like 350 to 500,000.
Oh, that's not bad.
Dry cleaning between 2 and 3 million.
Oh,
That's bad.
what, so if you add, okay, so on like number 3, roughly, if it's 1.7, it'd be 1.7, an extra 500,000 or $500,000 to clean it up, which would be reimbursed to whoever purchases it sooner or later by PP. Is that about correct?
So think about it, I think you go the other direction. So like if it's 1.7 and there's a $500,000 cleanup, in theory, the market value is 1.2, right?
Oh, okay.
And for the 4.1, if there's a $3 million cleanup, the market's 1.1 on that.
Now, when you mentioned the RFPs for the other locations, is it possible to get a copy of those, or are those closed?
The RFPs for the other cities?
Yeah, like-
I could probably track those down for you.
Yeah, if we get a link or a copy for council of the 167, because I'm curious to know about how they, like you said, that penciled out, and just to see how that was done. And the person who actually puts in the RFP is not always the builder. It's usually, it sounds like the person who's going to take control of the property and then find someone who's going to do the development on top of it.
That's the way I've seen it work.
Do you know of many cities who purchase property and then become the landlords, or would we as a city be required to hand off that asset to somebody to manage?
So this is Councilmember Dovey's idea. So I am not familiar with cities owning housing projects, because then they tend to be projects, and I think that's got a bad rap. So I think generally cities don't get in the actual housing construction game. We usually find a partner to kind of go into it with, if you will.
Gotcha. My 2 cents is 1, 2, and 3, I'm not really too concerned about, but P4, if that negotiation is correct, I mean, that's the one we always see drawings on in buildings for, of a park or a community development or a downtown city hall, something like that. So I don't have a problem moving forward and having the conversation. I'm just really more curious to know what the final number is going to be, and I'm not sure about being a long-term landlord. But I'd like to hear what the other council members have for ideas, what they would like to do with the property if we did move forward with that. And let's see. And then my other question would be, is we talk a lot about what is being developed in downtown. Do we have a breakout of like percentage of housing that is 55 and over, or percentage of housing that's just open to the public? Is if there's different demographics or groups that are being taken care of in that city, is it possible to see what's already and get a percentage, just to kind of get an idea of how much we have of each one?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Hondo?
Thank you. So I have a lot of concern with this proposal. We just went through our budget season, and we talked about buildings and roads and streets and parks and things that need maintenance and things that need to be improved, that we don't have any money to do. The roof on this building needs to be replaced. So anyway, this wasn't brought up at that point, and it would have been interesting to have talked about it during the budget season. What I do know is that for the PAC, we have to buy property for parking. When we built the PAC, we knew we didn't have enough parking, and we were going to buy a parking lot across the street that Walmart owns. I believe it was for $1 million, and we didn't have the funding at the time to do it. We still need to buy some land for parking.
We absolutely do.
But we haven't, as a council, talked about where we would get the funding for that and what we would buy, what we would purchase. But we know we have to do that. That isn't a choice. We have to do that. Because the PAC simply doesn't have enough parking. And when the Toys R Us property is developed, we won't be able to use it for parking. So that is something we have to do, and we need to start talking about doing that and doing that as quickly as we can. in my opinion, before property prices go much higher. When we purchased the Toys R Us property, we purchased it and we sat on it for a number of years, and I would not want to do that ever again. I can't remember how many years we sat on it, maybe 8 or 9, I can't remember.
You mean Target?
Yeah.
You said
Oh,
Toys R Us.
Toys R Us. Toys R Us is a pack, yeah.
Well, part of that was because of the litigation.
True.
We had the owner of the North, or the Rosen properties that was essentially, there were operating easements on, that they had on that property, and they were requiring us to pay multiple times what it was worth, and we had to condemn that. So that just took, we weren't just sitting on it waiting. We attempted to negotiate. When all of those efforts failed, we finally had to condemn that easement to clear it. And once it was cleared, that's when Keith started moving forward to where we were in the position we are now, which is under contract with Trent One, and we're looking at a mixed-use property there.
Yeah, well, we tried to put the hotel there, that didn't work.
I don't think the hotel was going to go there. I think the
It was
hotel
gonna
was
go by the path.
contemplated, yeah, back behind there.
But anyway, as a council, I would really love us to one day have a discussion about the wants and the desires of the future of Federal Way, and how we're gonna get there, and how we're going to maintain what we have, and what funding we have. And there's so many things that we need to do without putting ourselves in additional financial risk for something that may, I mean, why would we want to build housing and maintain that as a city? Why would we want to do that? I'm not sure that that's what we as a city would want to do. And I think this, when I wanted to and I still want to build an inclusive park, I was told to take it to the retreat to discuss it. So maybe this needs to go to the retreat, and we can have council members say what they would do with this property and what they would want to see there. I know that the public market folks would like us to buy it so that we can build a public market. But once again, if we build a public market, then are we running it? Is it the city's public market, or is it a 50c3's public market that we're building for them, which I don't believe we can legally do that. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I have a lot of concerns about it. I'm not sure we need any more senior housing downtown. We have quite a bit. You know exactly how much senior housing we have downtown, don't you?
I have a ballpark number, but I'm gonna find
Okay.
a number for y'all before we have another conversation about this.
So I'm
Yep.
not sure we need to build more senior housing downtown. I think we need housing downtown for all ages, maybe young families, maybe people retiring and trying to downsize, but not necessarily senior housing. So anyway, I think this should go to the retreat for a discussion, and I just have a lot of concerns about putting the city in a financial place that we may not be able to be in. That's my concern. Thank you.
A good discussion. I do think that being as involved as I was back in the 2014, the November of my first year as mayor, I think when the history is written of our downtown, the purchase of the Target property will be seen as probably one of the most important strategic decisions we've ever made, because we had already moved on the PAC, we built the park, we're doing the steps. It was kind of one of the, but I think we are talking about very key strategic moves for our downtown and the city. So it's a worthy discussion. Councilmember Walsh and then Dovey.
Just a quick follow-up question. Regarding the contamination, do you know if Sound Transit has done core boring to get an idea of where the contamination has moved to and at what depth?
On the dry cleaner property on parcel 4, or on either of the two?
Either of the two.
To my knowledge, unless you know differently, EJ, I don't think they've done, so typically you do a phase 1 environmental assessment first, where they kind of get a sense, they do some of that coring and get a sense for how far it might have migrated. And then the phase 2 is actually cleaning it up. So that has, I don't think, happened at this point.
So they have not done the phase 1 yet?
I do not believe so. If so, I haven't seen it, but I can check with their staff.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Duffy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to respond to Councilmember Honda's speech. And don't take it personally, but I believe that this property, much like the Target, is the most pressing thing our city should be looking at. If we don't have the opportunity to control what happens downtown, and Sound Transit may not negotiate with us, but if we don't ask the question, we're going to throw our destiny to somebody else to make the decisions. It could be Sound Transit, it could be the county, it could be anybody, but if we don't control the property and work with it to do things like the park that Susan talks about, or the community center, or the housing, or housing for seniors, and I think it's important we place parking behind living. People need a place to live more than they need to park. They still need to park, but if it was a decision between building a parking garage for the PAC and controlling housing for the people of Federal Way so they have a place to live and stay here, I would always vote for the housing. And so to say that we don't have the money to and can't afford it, yeah, we can't write a check right now. But if we have the foresight to say we're going to control our downtown, just like when the PAC was done, like the Celebration Park was done, we controlled it, our citizens have a place that they call home and they want to stay here. That's what we are really talking about. We shouldn't be talking about what it costs. We should be talking about the opportunity it costs and what we lose if we don't take the leadership. Now, we may find that we can't do it, but if we don't proactively go after it, we are all derelict, in my opinion, of doing what's right for our citizens, to know what we can and can't do. And I feel pretty strongly about it because the people who control property and the people who build things for their citizens and those are the ones that are successful. Bellevue wouldn't be what Bellevue is today if Kemper Freeman hadn't done the deal on that property. And Bellevue got so much going on because somebody had the foresight to control property. Again, we might not be able to buy it, but we should at least go for it. And I don't know. The things that we hear about, inclusive park, community centers for seniors, senior housing, all these things are not going to happen unless we direct it. We can't just say, Sound Transit, sell it to somebody and we'll get what they want to bring to us. We can do development agreements, but we can't be more in control. And I think this is all about controlling your downtown, making the projects we did with Target better, the PAC better, the park downtown better, and a place that people want to develop in Federal Way and grow. Now, we're probably not going to be the landlord, but that's how New York started. They built all those buildings for people to live there, their teachers, and people so they could stay in the city, and they were the landlord in the beginning. Now, they may be tenements now in some places, but if we plan it right, hand it off to the right people and control what gets done, then we're in control instead of somebody else. So anyway, I think this is real important that we engage Sound Transit and see if we can put something together, a business deal that makes sense for everybody that lives in this town, this city, the developers, and Sound Transit. This is a win-win-win if we can make it work. If we just say, oh, we don't have the money, we can't afford it, we don't have the vision to grow our city, then I think we missed the opportunity. So, thank you.
Thank you. Council President?
I believe there was one, so we were talking about 4 parcels here, and I think Bellevue had a number of different parcels, and one of them was not for housing. I can't remember, it was for economic development. I can't remember what it was, but
Yes, there was.
yeah, so I think you have a lot of discussions you can have with Sound Transit, but of the 4, I don't know if any of you have tried to find housing for seniors. I mean, we have, when you talk about senior housing and you look at how many seniors are in our downtown, you have to look at the average income for those folks. Because I have tried to find housing for a senior in our city anywhere, in particular the downtown, There's nothing under a certain amount of money. You have to co-sign if if their salary is below. I know women who have been married their entire lives, and the husband did not provide for them in the pension, and they are now living on $1,000 a month, period. And I'm not talking about a poor person. I'm talking about a person who was not fortunate. And where do they live? You have to co-sign. If their income is below a certain level, like 900 or 750, you have to co-sign for that person because not just for the rent, but for their utilities. So, so when you talk about seniors, you need to talk about income level. But beyond that, if we're going to talk about these 4 properties, I'm assuming that at least 2 or 3 are going to be for low-income families, such as for the Mercy and Hope housing type. But I would think that for low-income seniors, they don't have cars. Most of them are they're going to want to use transit. They're going to want to be able to walk somewhere. It's perfect for them. And it's also perfect for our schools because it's not going to be an impact on our schools. So I would like to see one of our properties at least dedicated to that kind of an idea. So you've got a lot of things to talk to Sound Transit about. So among all of the things we're bringing up, so you just throw it all on the table.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah, kind of with what Susan was saying is I think this maybe should be added to the retreat. The retreat already has comments about budgets. It has things to do with long-term maintenance of facilities the city owns. Buying a piece of property becomes an asset that we have to maintain. So I could easily see adding that in there. And my other part of the conversation is going to be is, are we looking at, since 1 and 2 are the only ones coming up for our RFP, are we looking at certain plots right now? Are we looking at all 4 of them? Are we looking at 3 of them? 1 and 2, we have to get involved now if we're actually looking at taking 1 and 2 on. If we're not looking at 1 and 2 and 3 or 4, something we're looking at, that's a down the road one where we do have more time to discuss it. So I'd like to know if the council's interested in literally 1 and 2, since those are the ones that are up for play right now.
I think it would make sense to engage. I mean, this would just be the initiation of conversations.
Yeah.
I think you'd want to have the ability to have a conversation about all 4. We wouldn't pursue all 4, but you'd want to at least have conversation about
Oh, I agree. I mean, like I said, I'm for talking to him just to find out.
Yeah.
But then the other part I have is, but I still want to know, like, what's really the mindset. I don't want to just say, yeah, I want to buy Monopoly pieces. I want to know why we're buying the Monopoly piece and what we're going to do with it. I do believe you got to lead, and I do believe you got to control, but at the same time, I want a smart game plan on that.
Right.
I don't want to just go out and grab something because we think we need it at the moment, so someone else can't have it.
Right.
I don't believe in that part. And then when it comes to the seniors, if they provide, I'm not going to call it low income, but if they provide AMI restricted income, it's not age restrictive, isn't it? So if someone is in the AMI that they're looking at targeting, if it turns out to be a senior, they're available for the housing that would be developed. Is that a correct understanding?
It could be either. So it could be just affordable housing, not age restricted, or it could be affordable housing, age restricted. It could actually be either one. Those are 2 different
Do
things.
they ever do an age restriction that you can't be older than? I know you, well, no, I mean, literally, you have 55 and over communities, but I've never seen 45 and below.
It's, I don't think so, because I think it starts to be kind of age discriminatory at that point.
Like 55 and over?
When it's over, it's because they're providing like services for people that are elderly, and so I think that part makes sense. But to say like you have to move out when you're turned 50, that seems like a weird sci-fi movie to me.
Well, I mean, I've seen like a lot of mobile home parks are 55 and over, so I mean, that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
And like I said, if it is seniors that do need the housing, if it's AMI restricted and it's not age restricted, then they should be qualified for the housing in that area too, in my mind.
They would compete with the 20-somethings, 30-somethings, 40-somethings, yes.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I support talking to them, but my big thing is I think it probably should be added to the retreat as an item underneath one of those previously slated agenda items. Thank you again.
Councilmember Hunter?
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Councilmember. I think when this is added to the retreat for a discussion, we can put all the things down that need to be fixed in the city, all of our buildings, our streets, talk about what they're going to cost, talk about what this would potentially cost. The thing is, if we don't purchase it, someone will purchase it and it will be housing. So I'm not worried that it's not going to be housing. It will be housing by somebody, because that's what the property, that's what Sound Transit has to put there, is housing. So it will be housing. As to the parking for the PAC, we don't have a choice in that. We do not have enough parking at the PAC by our own code. And we knew that when we built it. We know it today. Go there when the PAC is even 2/3 full. People are parking wherever they can find parking. They're complaining about it. We have no choice in that. We have to buy a piece of property for parking or put up a parking garage on the existing property, but we have to address that at some point. So we have all these needs and these wants and these desires as a city. Let's put them all on a piece of paper at the retreat, put down the cost, put down how important they are as to how we would attack them and get them fixed, and then put this up there and see where that falls. And the most important person we should be talking to, who's not standing up here, is our finance director. You know the big picture of the city, and you know the future of the city, and you should be part of this discussion. So, thank you.
Well, okay. Councilmember Dovey?
I want to make one last comment. I agree that we need to put a big list together at the retreat, but I think we definitely need to pass this so that our staff can talk to somebody, so we have information that we can make decisions on when we're at the retreat. And if we know how the land lays with this potentially, these RFPs and what goes on, we might make different decisions than if we're just discussing it. So it's really important, in my opinion, that we pass this, give the authority to our staff to go have discussions and have serious discussions, and then come back, and then we get the information at the retreat.
All right, Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, basically, that's, he said pretty much what I was going to say, is that I think that we need to pass this and ask Keith and the staff to accelerate the fact-finding and discussions as much as possible, so that in a month from now, when we do have the retreat, or if the retreat's, we're getting a pretty full schedule for the retreat. There might need to be another, special meeting or something anyway. But I think that it is priority that this be discussed, and I agree that we need to control the downtown, not just for this area here. There definitely needs to be housing, but personally, I think there needs to be more than housing also. I mean, that there needs to be a considerable amount of housing there, primarily housing, but also there needs to be things that can help develop a city core, a city center, and and that will be more than just housing. Make it a place so that there's housing, but people want to live there because of the other amenities, and that it makes it a desirable place to be. Anyway, those are my thoughts. So I think it's absolutely essential that we pass this for the authorizing staff to talk to Sound Transit and get as much information as we can, either before the retreat or before we have a much more in-depth discussion of it.
All right, thank you. Council President?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for saying, see what kind of information you can get from Sound Transit. So for Councilmember Honda, we do have on the retreat update on the city's financial position. So Steve Groom, you're going to be giving us a presentation on debt capacity and the reinvestment plans for capital facilities and current. So I would imagine that this could fall under there. But we don't want to be at the retreat for 2 days, so we want to make sure, I'm not sure how much you already have on the agenda, but.
Well, we've got a full day planned. What we'll do is, if this is desired to be on the agenda, I see Amy in the back of the room. We've been working on, and Stephanie and myself and several members of the council have been working on the agenda. We'll just have to rework the topics of the agenda to fit. We're stopping at 4 p.m. We've got staff members, so we start at 8 a.m. and go to 4.
Yeah, and I think there was one other item we wanted to add was on commission evaluation of folks who come to be applying as commissioners. I think we wanted to talk about that as well.
Okay, so what I would do, we've been working with Amy and Stephanie and team regarding the items on the agenda. So just give your suggestions to Amy, and we'll continue to hammer them out. All right, and then Councilmember Daniel?
Yeah. Keith, if we go with option one and pass this, what is your estimated commitment for staff to get to at least the point of having a decent conversation at the retreat? Are we looking at lots of time, or are we looking at a couple of emails and we're calling it good at that?
Probably a little bit more than that. So not a ton of time. I mean, this is, you know, I think there's going to be some pushing to see how far we can get, you know, and these are, I think, uncharted conversations with Sound Transit. At least that's the impression I think Kent and I both had. So, you know, whenever you chart new paths, it goes a little slower than if somebody else, if we could just say, let's replicate what they did in Linwood, which we're not doing. But they basically said, hey, if you guys want to talk with us, let's just start talking. So it might be, let's call it a dozen hours of total staff time to do all the questions and push on things, see how far they're willing to agree before it gets uncomfortable, and kind of have that conversation with the council at another time, whether it's at the retreat or at a future council meeting. You know, we can do it whenever. Just give me a deadline and we'll go.
I feel that's a worthwhile investment, roughly a dozen hours or so. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Honda?
So I believe that the city of SeaTac tried to buy some property from Sound Transit to control the housing, and it was not sold to that city for whatever reasons. I really have to be convinced that this is the right thing to do to put the city in this financial position. I'm willing to talk about it at the retreat, and I agree with Councilmember McDaniel. I really don't want staff spending a whole lot of time on it, considering that they're already pretty overworked, and this is a big dream. But we do need to bring it to the retreat and discuss it. Thank you.
All right. Council President Kochmar, do you have a motion?
I do. Thank you very much, Mayor. I move to authorize staff to initiate discussions with Sound Transit regarding potential property acquisition of one or more Sound Transit surplus TOD properties.
Second.
It's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then I would ask the Council President to communicate with, and the other members to communicate with Amy regarding their updates for the agenda. And I think we've got some room to move. We'll work on it.
It fits into what we're discussing.
Yeah, of course. Okay, now, I'm moving on to item C, Federal Way Farmers Market Transition Expenses. Bill Vedino, Policy Analyst. Bill, would you, the floor is yours.
Stand by, our presentation has been taken off the desktop. So I am seeking it right now. I might need Thomas's assistance to find it. Or someone who's in the booth. There we go. I've got it, I just got to make sure it shares with the world. There we are. Well, this is different too. There we go. So Mayor, Council President, Council members, good evening. We're here to review where we're at with the partnership transition with the Federal Way Farmers Market. The policy question today, and this comes from the Parks Committee, sent to you. Should the City Council authorize the expenditure of up to $33,000 for the purchase of equipment necessary for the transition of the Federal Way Farmers Market to the City of Federal Way? And the options are approve, do not approve, and provide direction to staff. And the mayor's recommendation is to approve. As a review for those watching, knowing about this for the first time, this farmers market has got a 21-year history. Rose, David Eel, and their daughter Carla, who are here in the audience, have been providing this wonderful asset for the city for all of that time. And they'd like to partner with the city in order to retire their role. They have equipment and assets that we need, that they would like to sell to us in order to make this transaction happen. Their daughter is going to be an employee of ours. part-time, temporary, seasonal. And also, Vicki Chenoweth is very much in favor of being her assistant manager, and she's in the audience with us today, too. And as we mentioned before, as we look at our projected financials so far, and we should have 2024 to share in a few weeks, we believe we can land this thing as a break even. So as we've talked about before, the transition, we hope to begin February 1. Once the transition is made, February 1 is when the vendor registration goes out, and we'll have the same, at this point, though we'll be evaluating the schedule, we'll be doing the same season as we had in the last year. We'll be doing the same events, have a ad hoc advisory group, continue the one that's there, and enhance it. So the main issue today is coming to an agreement with the EELS for the transfer of the assets. We are in the process of assessing it, and you're about to see where we are in the process, and we are doing documentation and sources to make it auto-proof, proof of, from an audit, so that, number one, we are paying fair market value, not paying over that, and also not having any issues with gift of public funds. So in front of you, and also at the front of the door for everybody to look at, this is where we are at this point. We are down to 30,015, though the motion says up to 33,000. And many of these items are now have comparables. There are some we are still working on. But this motion would basically let us move forward and basically come up with the amount, and then we would be approved to do that.
Bill, the type, I know that each council member has a copy, but can you go, like, what are we talking about here for the audience? Because it's very difficult. It's impossible to see.
To read what we have?
What's that?
To basically summarize, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, sorry about that. If
Yeah.
I could do this another way, but okay. So basically, there are two vehicles. One is a van that would store equipment, bring the equipment to, take it out, and then store it over the week when it's not being used. Also, a storage unit. There are tents.
And you've only got the van, a 2000 Dodge Ram 10-seater, is only valued at $5,500. Is that right?
Correct.
And then, why don't you just read the items?
Okay. 2000 Dodge Ram van, 10-seater, value, Blue Book right now, $5,500. The weights for the tent, 20 at $100, which is a steal. Trash cans, 4 at $100. Cones, traffic cones, the high, the big ones, 10 for $150. The utility trailer, valued at $3,500 for our equipment. Canopies, 6 canopies at $300, 50 each. A small generator at $300 and a large generator at, a small generator at $600, there's my eyesight, for $400, and the large generator at $600. And then various power cords, gas cans, A-frames, signs, $300. And then bins that hold tokens, snap materials, banners and signage at $500. The air dancer sign and blower, a bargain at $100. 21 tables at $410. 25 chairs at $355. Kids activity items, which we'll break out later, $150. The website and domain, and looking at other nonprofits at this point, is evaluated at $4,000. The tokens that we have in stock, in order to replace them, would be, they're worth $500 now. The gold tokens, $1,050. And then there's a Taste of Federal Way inventory, which is various items, including banners, signs, the hand washing stations, the decor. Of course, we'd be buying the name, trays, the serving boats, and the silverware for $2,000. And then looking at other nonprofits, the value of contact info for market vendors and sponsors for the Taste of Federal Way, for Facebook contacts, for Constant Contact, 712 contacts, and the current vendor list. So that brings the subtotal to $25,000. Once again, this is going to be subject to even more documentation for auditing. And then there's the donut machine, and all the equipment to complete the processing of donuts, the pans, the storage bins, the tools, the mixer. There's also, the things to make it, but also a coffee percolator, a lemonade dispenser, and then, of course, this also counts the 2 large banners and training hours, which is worth just under $500. That adds $5,000, so right now we are sitting at $30,015.
Okay.
Next time I'll make a bigger promise.
Okay, council, any questions? Councilmember Shepherd Austin?
Thank you, Mayor. This question might be for Mr. Hutton. Are there any of these items listed here that the city already has?
Not that wouldn't normally be in use on a Saturday for different festivals. We have so many different special events that they couldn't guarantee that these things would be available for a farmer's market.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah, real quick, so these price items are not the ones that have been verified, they're just the ones that we have to start with at the moment? Is that correct?
Some have been, many have been verified.
Okay, some have been verified.
Yes.
When will we actually have a final number?
Well, we won't be able to start the partnership until we finalize them. So I'd say we got to get them done by February 1, so we can,
Everyone? Okay.
proceed.
And the motion, yeah, the motion we're looking at is putting a $33,000 top off for
Right.
assets. Is there any assets that are not listed here at the moment?
No.
Okay, so all assets
No.
are listed?
Yeah, and right now, that motion which came from committee was based on where we were, 4 working days ago.
So
So
the
as
ask-
we work on this, it keeps going down.
So the ask right now is $30,015.
Correct.
Correct.
We're not asking for 33.
Correct.
Well, the motion's for 30, is for 30.
Well, that's the motion that came from committee when
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, and then one of the questions we did have for legal was, I know in buying another company, usually goodwill's added in as an asset. Is the city allowed to do goodwill? Is that something that's outside this world?
No.
Okay. So if we say it's 33,000, or whatever we put in for for tonight,
Right.
then that's the top off, then whatever this comes to, it is what it is, that's just the top amount that we're going to be voting on tonight?
Correct.
Correct, okay. And then one of the assets that is not listed, that can't be classified as an asset, is when this gets handed off, Rose will not be coming along as a consultant or anything on this at the moment, is she?
No.
So it will be completely handed off to an in-house crew, and then
It
her
would be,
daughter?
yeah, it would be handed off to his seasonal temporary employees, Carla and Vicky. Now, if we needed Rose, we could maybe have a seasonal temporary there, but that's not in this milieu right now, not in this, what we're
Gotcha.
looking at today.
Yeah.
I mean, we may have to bring other people that have been mentioned as well, too.
Yeah. So my 2 cents on this one is I don't have a problem with passing what we have since it's going to be revalued and the final value numbers are going to be what it is. But I think there might need some consideration in for maybe having some potential consulting on the side. I don't think the city of Federal Way has the personnel capable of running it, and even if it's for 6 months or something like that. And I think that could easily fit underneath the tourism that we've approved some cash for underneath the economic development. So I think there's some play between economic development and parks to handle this. And when will we actually get a performer to find out how we're going to be cash neutral? One of the things that was mentioned, we've had some emails on it, is the city has stated this will be, for the most part, a cash, it's not going to be a loss for the company. I don't know how we're phrasing it at the moment. What is the terminology?
I'm hoping to have a budget based on 4 years of data in 2 weeks.
Okay. What was the term?
Before this starts, I've got to know for sure. The mayor needs to know for sure.
Yeah. So
But it's looking good at this point. I'm
So when-
cautiously optimistic.
yeah, so when will you have that information?
Let's see, hopefully, well, February 1, so that's less than 2 weeks.
Okay, so pretty much everything is going to be on February
Yeah,
1st?
Yeah, Steve Grimm and I have been talking about categories, and yes,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Council President?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. Do you know how old the donut machine is and the generators? Does that factor into the cost of what those are?
Yes, yes, but we will have the model numbers, we will have basically the comparables for
Okay.
comparison.
Okay. And whenever this deal is done, I
Yes.
don't know what the deal would be to finish. Is that the day that Carla starts? Because the market needs
Correct.
to pre-plan. It doesn't just
Yeah.
open by itself.
She starts
That's
February
projected to
1st.
be February 1.
Okay,
we start rolling.
awesome. Okay,
Because that's when the applications go out. Verbally, vendors know that this transition is, got a good chance of happening.
So is Vicky then going to be a
System
seasonal
Yes,
temporary
that is,
worker?
yes, yes.
And then, so Vicky will start at the same time?
Yeah, and we have a volunteer making donuts.
Has the letter gone out to the vendors yet?
No, because this has not been finalized.
I'm sorry?
You're the volunteer for the donuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I'm doing it. I got a hat. I'm in. Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be there all day Saturday, every Saturday?
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
we'll get that in writing.
We are talking about donuts, right?
We'll
All right.
get that in writing.
Councilmember Dovey?
Yeah, I just had, I wanted to comment, Councilmember Daniel brings up a good point. You might need some more training in this handover, so that should be calculated. And I'm confused on February 1. Does this have to come back to council for our next meeting, or
No.
if we vote on this, it just?
Yeah,
you have the
what we're looking
opportunity?
for is the authority, and we're going to pay fair market value for these things. We just want a ceiling. We need to establish a ceiling and get approval by council about how much we could spend. So,
Now, if you're talking about additional training as part of this, we could do that.
Well, you had training down here at
Yeah, for the
$30 hourly for 14 hours. What if
Yeah.
you need 27 hours?
Yeah.
What if you need 27 hours?
Just to cut to the quick, I anticipated that any additional training would be part of the,
Okay.
as I just broke a microphone.
You know, sometimes when you do these things, you need more training than you actually budget for, so that might be up to the 33,000.
Yeah.
The mayor's a quick study on the donut machine.
exactly.
I will not let this wander into the wilderness, and
That's right.
what are we doing?
May I ask who has to be trained? Is it city staff as to how to set up the market, or what's the training for, besides the donut machine?
Well, by having Carla and Vicky, we're pretty much 99% there. And then we
Right,
need training,
that's-
which is in this budget for the donut machine. But there are some intangibles that we need to anticipate. For instance, like working with John's team, who'll be setting up and taking down. There might be, we're used to working with volunteers. Well, there's a whole different aspect to dealing with John's team. So there'll be some training with that.
Okay.
We'll be
just curious.
learning about how to do the applications correctly, because they're now applying to do a market and be on display with the city of Federal Way. So there's all these pieces that are now new to, different from a nonprofit business.
So is it different running a farmer's market that is owned and operated by a city than one that is owned and operated by a private company?
The only piece will be making sure, as Kent and I have talked about, all the documents, there's insurance, all the relationships, we have to make sure it's like the city having a relationship with vendors and people who are on the ground versus just a nonprofit.
Yes, it will be different.
Okay,
Yeah, and the legal team will be there by our side, making sure.
Nonprofits don't have to comply with our purchasing requirements or a number of other legal requirements that apply to cities that wouldn't apply to a nonprofit. So it's definitely different. To what extent? Probably not hugely, but there will be differences.
so it could actually be more expensive for the city to run it because we have to comply with those type of things?
Potentially.
Okay, well, I'm glad we're going to have it
Yeah.
at least for a year and see what happens.
We'll have our eyes wide open on it.
Yeah, awesome, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Walsh?
I move approval of the proposed expenditure of up to $33,000 for the purchase of equipment necessary for the transition of the Federal Way Farmers Market to the city of Federal Way.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
And I think Susan voted twice. Yes, so, exactly.
8-0.
All right. All right, ordinances, first reading, Council Bill 8095, ordinance electric vehicle code amendments. Andrew Leon, our senior planner, is going to give a presentation, followed by council discussion and questions, and public comment if there is any. Andrew?
Thank you. I'm Andrew Leon, Senior Planner, here to talk about the electric vehicle amendment. So policy question is, should the city council adopt a proposed text amendment to Title 19 of the Federal Way Revised Code relating to electric vehicles? Just as a little bit of brief legislative history, for the past 15 years, there's been legislation in place that requires cities to allow electric vehicle infrastructure in all non-residential zones. And that has been updated a couple of times in the last 5 years to require it on basically any new building, just about, that's not single-family residential. So the issues are that the city, the Federal Way Revised Code does not currently have standards regarding electric vehicle infrastructure, which has led to a lack of clarity on how city staff should review proposals for adding EV infrastructure, both as an accessory to an existing use or as a new use in its own right. And this amendment's intended to improve clarity in that regard, both to city staff and to property owners on how and where the infrastructure can be permitted. So again, brief overview of our code amendments. We're adding definitions to Chapter 1905 of the Federal Way Revised Code relevant to electric vehicles. There are updates to land use tables in chapters 19-215, 19-220, 19-230, and 19-240, and those regard the neighborhood business, community business, city center frame, and commercial enterprise zones respectively, that to allow electric vehicle infrastructure as a primary use. The reason why we've chosen those zones is because gas stations are currently allowed in those zones, and we sort of imagine that a electric vehicle infrastructure facility as a primary use would be very similar to a gas station, so that's why we've addressed it that way. And we've also added a new chapter, Chapter 19.295, to establish development regulations throughout the city for accessory dwelling, or not accessory dwelling use, that's a different amendment that's coming up soon. Electric vehicle infrastructure as a primary or an accessory use. So this amendment has moved through Planning Commission public hearing in October and LUTC in December. First reading is today, and we're planning on having a second reading next month. So these are the criteria for regulation amendment. In the staff report, we did cover these. Basically, the amendment is consistent with applicable provisions of the comprehensive plan in that it improves clarity in the code and streamlines the review process. And that also applies to the second two criteria as well. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this amendment, as did the LUTC. They forwarded it to the council at large for adoption. And that is also the mayor's recommendation. So any questions?
Council, any questions? Okay. Let's see here. Thank you, Andrew. Stay close. Do we have any, so there's no questions by council. Is there any public comment?
I don't have anyone signed up, Mayor.
All right.
Anna?
Oh, nope. All right. Okay, all right. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 895, Ordinance Electric Vehicle Code Amendments, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to electric vehicles, amending Federal Way Revised Code 19-05020, 19-05050, 19-05060, 19-05180, 19-05220, 19-215-030, 19-220-030, 19-230-040, 19-240-020, and 19-240-050, and adding a new chapter 19-295 Federal Revised Code, including sections 19-295-010, 19-295-020, 19-295-030, and 19-295-040.
All right. Councilmember Dovey, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the February 4th council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
All right. There's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion?
I do have a question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I've noticed that some of the EV charging stations, they've doubled them with the disabled parking spots. How do we manage that when it comes to Federal Way, because it's taking away parking, I feel?
So our amendment does require that basically existing parking requirements still be met. So if that's a good question. I'll look into that a little bit further and get back to you. Our amendment does, again, like I mentioned, does require that the parking standards still be met. So if they do have enough parking, existing accessible parking to sort of accommodate both
Right.
the EV chargers and other vehicles, that could theoretically be okay. But yeah, we should probably double check on that.
And that's what I've seen, and I feel like it takes away from the accessible parking, because if I have an EV, I can go park it there and charge.
Right, and that may be the case, so we definitely need to check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Honda?
Talking about what Councilmember Sefadossin is talking about, we can tell you the parking lot that we know of where this exists here in Federal Way, and there isn't enough disabled parking.
Okay.
But there are 2 spots that you can park there to charge your vehicle and have a disabled parking permit. So it's confusing for people who might need to park there because they're disabled and they are allowed to park there because they might not realize that they get to park there, even if they don't need to charge their vehicle. So it is rather confusing.
Okay, yeah, we may need to take another look at that
Okay.
and get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, okay. All right, there's been a motion, a second, a discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. All right. All right, matter passes unanimously. Thank you. Good job, Andrew. All right, item B, Council Bill 896, ordinance T-Mobile West LLC franchise. First presentation from Cole Elliott, Development Services Manager. Cole?
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, members of the council. I'm Cole Elliott. I'm the Development Services Manager. What I come before you tonight is the T-Mobile West franchise ordinance. The policy question we've been asked is, should we grant T-Mobile a franchise ordinance to continue placing wireless transmitting facilities throughout the city and within the right-of-way? T-Mobile has had a franchise request from the city, and they need one in order to continue their work. This ordinance is a replacement of the previous ordinance, which expires in November of this year. They came early. The general terms for the franchise is for 10 years. This franchise is consistent with the previous franchise and other franchises granted to utility providers. The options were forward this franchise on to tonight for the first reading, or do not forward it and give us some direction for staff. The mayor's recommendation obviously was to forward it on to tonight's reading, and the LUTC voted again unanimously to forward it to. Now I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you, Cole. Council, any questions of Cole? Councilmember Dubey?
Yeah, can I move oh wait, I can't move it yet, can I?
What's up? Oh, okay, yeah. I just wanted to check that. Do we have, so no questions or discussion by council. Is there any public comment?
I don't have anyone signed up, Mayor.
Okay, would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 896, ordinance T-Mobile West LLC franchise, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington, granting T-Mobile West LLC a non-exclusive franchise to occupy rights-of-way of the City of Federal Way, Washington, within the specified franchise area for the purposes of constructing, maintaining, operating, replacing, and repairing a telecommunications network within and through the City of Federal Way.
All right. Councilmember Dubey?
I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the February 4th, 2025 city council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second?
Been a motion, a second, to move this forward to second reading. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that matter passes unanimously. All right, thank you. Item C, Council Bill 898, Ordinance Title 18, Subdivisions Permit Review and Timelines, Senate Bill 5290. First, presentation by Holly Bozak, Planning Manager. Holly?
Good evening, Mayor, Council President Kochmar, and council members. I'm going to have two presentations related to Senate Bill 5290 tonight. I do apologize for the nature of them both being very similar. I will try to keep the second one quite brief. So first off tonight, we have the changes to Title 18 due to Senate Bill 5290. This bill is primarily related to updating our timelines for permit review and fees. So the policy question for the council tonight is, should the city adopt amendments related to Senate Bill 5290? To give you a brief overview of what Senate Bill 5290 is, it was a bill passed with a number of bills aimed at streamlining review processes and increasing housing. And this particular bill focuses on condensing the timelines for permit review processes, assessing fees and ensuring that they are reasonable, and consolidating and streamlining the review process. So, as I just mentioned, the main points of the bill are permit timelines, the fees, and the review process. So we are looking with this bill to aim for final decision within a specific time period. We're also looking to ensure that the fees assessed are reasonable for the amount of review time and staff work put into each review type, and that the process that we're using is modernized and streamlined. The timelines you see up here are the timelines outlined in the bill. And what you see is 65 days is associated with any permit that does not require a public notice. 100 days is for any type of review that requires a public notice. And 170 days is what is allowed for those that require a public notice and a public hearing. And just to clarify, these are total days, and that is counting every calendar day. There are pauses in the timeline, so if review comments go out to an applicant, the clock stops. Once the review comes back in with revisions, the clock starts again. However, the goal from the state's perspective is that city is having a final decision within no greater than 65, 100, or 170 days. So Senate Bill 5290 requires that local jurisdictions impose reasonable fees, and the city has assessed these fees and determined that the current fees are deemed reasonable. We have we've assessed our fees against neighboring jurisdictions, and our fees are on par with those and much less than many of them. This bill also, as mentioned, requires that we streamline our review process, and the city has already done that. So we already offer a condensed and consolidated review process, so that is something that we already have in play. The amendments to Title 18 are listed here. There are a few that had to be adjusted in terms of the timelines that we currently have and those that we will have to abide by. So as you can see, for a number of these, they are almost cut in half, which will place a little bit more pressure on staff. When I presented to LUTC, there were questions about if that was going to require more staff, and I do have to apologize because, planning is only one of the review teams that's reviewing these permits. There is also building staff and public works staff, and so I can't speak for their teams. I would take a guess that it could potentially impact public works the greatest. Recommendation, Planning Commission recommended approval on November 20th. Mayor's recommendation is for adoption, and LUTC recommendation on January 6th was for adoption of the proposed ordinance. And with that, next up is second reading in February, and I will answer any questions on Title 18 at this time before I move to Title 19.
All right. Well, we're going to take care of this, and then we'll move on to that.
Sure.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah, the only question I have is, we were talking about potential staff increase. How fast will we notice if there's an increase requirement? Are we looking 3, 6, 12 months?
I would say, from a planning standpoint, I will have a good sense within the next 2 to 3 months.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if EJ wants to jump in and say if he has any idea if it's going to impact his team at all.
I'm going to echo her comment and say probably the same time frame.
All right. Okay, no other questions? Holly, thank you very much. Stay close. Do we have any public comment?
No, Mayor, I don't have anyone signed up.
All right. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 898, Ordinance Title 18, Subdivisions, Permit Review and Timelines, Senate Bill 5290, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to project permit review processes and associated timelines, amending Federal Way Revised Code 18-10050, 18-15060, and 18-20050.
All right. Councilmember Dovey, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the February 4th, 2025 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
There's been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passed unanimously. All right. Item D, Council Bill 897, Ordinance, Title 19, Zoning and Development Code Permit Review and Timelines pursuant to SB Senate Bill 5290. Holly Bozak again will give the presentation. Holly?
All right, good evening again, Mayor, Council President, and council members. So we're going to talk about Title 19 now and the impacts of Senate Bill 5290 on Title 19. The policy question, again, is should the city adopt amendments related to Senate Bill 5290, and I'm going to try to whiz through this one. So on this slide, you'll see the overview and impacts. So the condensed timelines, again, 65 days, 100 days, and 170 days based on the permit type. Again, we must have reasonable fees imposed, and we must have a consolidated and streamlined process. The amendments to Title 19 are outlined here on the screen. So we do have some exemptions to the timelines. Those projects that are required to go to the hearing examiner or require peer review from outside consultants have been listed as exemptions due to the fact that we do not know what the timelines for the peer reviewers will be or what the timeline for the hearing examiner will be to make those decisions. And that has been outlined in the staff report as well. And then additionally, we have clarified the timeline for the use process 2 is now going to be 65 days, and use process 3 has changed from 120 days to 100 days. And again, just as with Title 18, Planning Commission recommendation on November 20th was for approval, Mayor's recommendation is for adoption, and LUTC recommendation on January 6th was for adoption. Next steps is second reading in February. Any questions?
All right. Council, any questions? Councilmember Seffi Dawson? All right. All right. Do we have any public comment?
No, Mayor, no one signed up.
All right. Would the city clerk please read the ordinance title?
Council Bill 897, Ordinance Title 19, Zoning and Development Code Permit Review and Timelines, Senate Bill 5290, an ordinance of the City of Federal Way, Washington relating to project permit review processes and associated timelines, amending Federal Way Revised Code 19-15010, 19-55040, 19-60070, and 19-65100.
All right. Councilmember Dovey?
I move to forward the proposed ordinance to the February 4th, 2025 council meeting for second reading and enactment.
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Matter passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you all.
Great job. Okay, now we're on to council reports. It's the second meeting of the month. We'll start on that end of the dais. Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to report that we had our fourth session of financial literacy started last week, and we had 45 people attend and start taking the class, which I think is the biggest class we've had since we started this. And I believe we've had almost 150 people go through since this council passed this program and added it to our services to our citizens. And I'm told that Lydia is working on another class through another organization, so we're going to hopefully double down and get more people through. So it's been going well, and I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of it. And when's the next class, Bill? It's every Thursday, right? Correct. Yeah, so, and people still can join because they've only done 1 week. So thank you very much. That's my report.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councilmember Walsh?
Yeah, I would like to reiterate what Councilmember Dovey said. The financial literacy class, talk about a program that can change lives. And it's, I was backing it from the start, and it has been more successful than what I had even anticipated. And I want to thank Bill and all of the volunteers for all the work that is done to make it successful. It's truly something that can make a difference in people's lives, a generational difference, in fact. Also, I want to thank the Diversity Commission for a great job on the MLK Day event. Thank you. It takes a lot of work to do that, and it was good. And I agree with the mayor that some of the kids in the performing, the adults did great. The kids, I mean, they're who won the hearts, and it was fantastic. So thank you. That's my report.
Very good. Thank you very much. Councilmember Honda.
Thank you. Yes, the Martin Luther King celebration was a great celebration, and the kids were awesome. I had my favorite little boy in the beginning there. He was adorable. I'd like to thank Ron for all the work that he's done on making sure that the city has had a MLK event. There was one year when I was on the Diversity Commission that we weren't allowed to have it. The city attorney said it didn't fit into the code of what the Diversity Commission was, so we weren't allowed to have it that year. The next year, we came back and we've had one ever since. So, but Ron has been a big factor in those events, and I'd like to thank him for coming back to the Diversity Commission and working on this event, and for all the other diversity commissioners, because it takes a whole commission, not just one person. I'd also like to encourage people to support your local schools, not only in sports, but for instance, Federal Way High School last weekend had a drama performance where they did short plays. It was about an hour long. About 15 students participated, really interesting. This weekend, they're doing musical theater showcase on January 23rd and 24th at 7 p.m. There's a small fee to go in because the program has to make some money to pay for the costumes and things like that. But, and support our students. They work really hard, and if you don't have someone in our schools, it's always fun to go into the schools and see what they're doing these days. Weyerhaeuser Company, which when they came to Federal Way, I think put Federal Way on the map there for a while, because when people knew when they were driving by Federal Way, when they saw the huge flag flying, celebrated its 125th year birthday on January 18th. And, they started in the Midwest, and there's a town in Wisconsin, a little village called Weyerhaeuser. And I've looked them up. Their meetings are not on video because they're such a small little town, but it would be fun to watch if they were. And Mayor, the legislative session is in session now. I just saw that you sent an email tonight with updates from our lobbyists. Thank you. But could you let council know when we could have the potential opportunity to testify?
Yeah, that came in on Friday, and we just,
Okay.
yeah.
But I
I will.
watched some of the hearings, and other councils are testifying, and it would be nice if we could also have that opportunity and get our voice out there. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Thank you. I'm going to kind of take off some of the other guys. So financial literacy, I was actually in the first group there, and I found it very exciting and actually informative. It's amazing how you can think you're doing the right thing and realize you're jumping all over the place with your different steps. I'd love to see, and I've mentioned this before, bringing back some of a larger gathering of them. I'd be curious to know how much debt was paid off and how much money was saved up when you add up everybody who's ever joined that. Again, it's a phenomenal program, and I hope we continue that one. I was able to make the MLK. I enjoyed the activity. My favorite was the little kids choir that sang at one point. I enjoyed them the most. They had songs I knew, and I could sing with them, so that was enjoyable. And then I do have a question. You did mention it was me on Channel 21. Do we also have a recording that's posted on YouTube or anything?
It will be.
It will be? Okay, I'd be interested to watch that. I'm going to listen to the keynote speaker again and see if I can get a little more insight into what they were talking about. I've also been able to sit in with the Diversity Commission, and I'll give them a shout out. They've really stepped up their game and are getting together as a nice unit and moving forward with a lot of items on their agenda for this year. It's a pretty heavy one, but I think they'll be able to handle it, and I hope they are able to do that. The last item I have is I was at the Federal Way Community Center on Sunday working out, And there was a gentleman there who brought in about 3 or 4 young gentlemen to work up in the weight room. And it turned out to be a little bit of a conflict because of their age they weren't allowed to use the weights. And in a contentious moment, I eavesdropped into the gentleman's conversation with the staff, and I thought he handled it well. It was not something that it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And I actually found him later on and gave him encouragement of, like, I appreciate how he handled it and how he actually represented in front of those young gentlemen the proper way to do it. And there is some items I'd like to address. I think it was a missed opportunity for the city. It turned out that the person who was talking to him could have shown the kids how to use the weights, and they were certified to use the weights. Instead, they just kind of walked away. I feel that's a missed opportunity for us. And I also read through the rules. There's some of them I'd like to discuss to see if they maybe can be modified or adapted. But it was nice to see someone in the city step up and be that kind of leader without even really saying anything. No one's listening, no one's watching him that he knew of. But I really appreciate it. So whoever that gentleman is, I thank you for that, man. It was encouragement to see that. Hope everybody has a great week.
You too. Thank you very much. All right, Councilmember Cepheus-Dawson?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. To add to what Councilmember Dovey said around financial literacy, we're working with Mujer al Volante, and that group is, we gave them a proclamation during the Hispanic Heritage Month. And so they're partnering with us. Actually, they're working with Department of Treasury for the curriculum, and it's a 4-week program. It starts March 6th. And it's for 4 weeks. And one of the things we talked about is that one caters to families with low income, and so getting them to do their finances well, and then maybe, hopefully, that could help them transition to the Dave Ramsey program, I think would be how we can manage and build that bridge between the two programs, I think is what we talked about, and they were very open. They starting in Spanish and English, and then willing to expand to other languages if needed. But we had a really good conversation with them, and I think it looks very promising for us to start that with them. So I'm excited. And those also happen to be on Thursdays, so I don't know. And then on a personal note, I just returned today actually from Charlotte, visiting my friend who lost her mom. And so within my Ethiopian community since December 19th, we've lost like 5 people for various reasons between the ages of 24 to, I'd say, 70. So every weekend has been dealing with that. And because we're a tight-knit community, we either know each other or know somebody who knows them, but we do gather at each of these, and it's overwhelming. But I think what I wanted to say is, considering all the different reasons why people have died or passed away, I would like to encourage us all to be very aware of our neighbors and people around us, because there are people who are lonely and don't have the support. And I thought about it, and I'm like, I don't even know. I know 3 of my neighbors and no one else. And I don't even know how many people live there, if anybody's living alone. And we could, it's just sad to see this happening, and some people are dying alone. And 2 of the people who passed away within my community were found because they didn't show up to things. And so I just wanted to encourage people to be aware of and be around and just be that bridge for us, because we don't know when it's going to be our turn. And for the most part, I live alone, not currently, but I actually thought of my own vulnerability and not knowing if and when I need help. And so just wanted to throw that out. And thank you. With that, I end my
Great. Thank you very much. Council President Kochmar?
Thank you, Councilmember Cepheus-Dawson. I agree totally. We have a lot of people in our community who live alone and are lonely, and they just need somebody to reach out. So thank you for bringing that up. Mayor, it's 2025.
Yes. Yes, it is.
And do you know what happened in 2008?
A whole bunch. Yeah.
We had our first municipal court. And when our first municipal court judge, Dave Larson,
Right.
is going to retire this year.
Yep.
And I think it would be nice if we had something more than just cake here. He was our first ethics chair in 1991, and he's had numerous awards ever since then, including in the community. He was on the first foundation board for Kiwanis. But I think it would be nice, I mean, we could do cake here for him, which is fine, but it would be nice if you had something in the, like we do for people who are retiring after 30 years, during the week or whatever, and invite other people from other agencies to come that he's interacted with.
You bet. Actually, I've got a really good idea about something, but I'm.
Cool.
We could also put it in the AWC notebook at the annual meeting. They have a place in the back of the book for folks who are retiring after so many years of municipal
Good.
work.
Good. Could you be in charge of that? Okay.
I'll have the mayor's staff be in charge of that.
Thank you. Cool.
We'll have
Okay.
cake and pie. All right, just kidding. We're gonna go all out.
Donuts?
Exactly.
Got a machine.
We'll break out the donut machine.
Okay.
We'll get him a hat. All right.
Thank you.
Great meeting you guys. Thank you so much. It's an honor to serve with you. We're adjourned.